Welcome to Fantasy or Reality, the Gambling Problem Podcast. This is the All Recovery series, and today I'm joined by my friend Tim M. I met Tim a few months ago at a recent recovery retreat where we both went to learn and to speak to others, and we both presented there. And just the first day, we ended up sitting down next to each other, and Tim just looked over, introduced himself, and we just started talking, and I could tell right from that first interaction that Tim and I were going to get along. I felt like a connection with him immediately. So I'm really excited to bring his story here. He's got a really great story. Um, he's really turned his life around. I'm really proud of the stuff he's done, and I can't wait to hear him talk about it more on here. Tim is from Connecticut. He volunteers for the Connecticut Council on Problem Gambling. He also runs a TikTok, which is titled Betting on Recovery. So please check that out. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tim. How you doing, Tim?
Yeah, hey Stephen, it's a pleasure to be on here. Happy to get into these things and try and reach out to be more of an outlet for people that are clearly struggling out there. I myself regret not reaching out to anybody or looking out for other avenues to seek for help in my early gambling days, and it probably would have solved a lot of issues that I created if I had just, sought for more education on gambling and just understanding that there's a lot of people out there that are like you and I. So, um, yeah. So, to give you a little bit of a background on, what led me here and the depths of my gambling. You know, I was a stock options gambler. It didn't mean I didn't gamble on other things. Um, I was always enjoyed gambling growing up, but I was never a real problem gambler. I go to the casino with my friends. You bring a couple $100, you lose it. Maybe sometimes you go back to the ATM and, go back to the tables, whatever. But it was always controlled. It was recreational. Um, did I maybe enjoy it more than some other friends? Yeah, but I was just always a little bit, bigger risk taker in that regard. But it was never a problem. Uh, in fact, conversely to like maybe some other people that have struggled with addiction, this disease doesn't discriminate on anybody. There's people that have been gambling their whole life. There's people that just come from a family of gamblers. There's people that have all reasons why, they got to where they did in this addiction. And, for me, my addiction really only spanned about 2 years. Um, you can make the argument that it's progressive in its nature and, there's things that led to where it was. But, uh, you know, it came more as a shock to myself and to my family and everything because of how the magnitude of which my addiction took me in such a short time is really mind blowing. And not only is that a bit of a unique set of circumstance, which I'll get into in a minute, but also just again like how quick it all just happened. And to take a step back, I had struggled a little. I struggled a little bit financially. I had got myself into debt when I used to live in the city, and I was crawling out of it, pursuing my career in finance. I went to school for finance. I worked down in Wall Street for a couple of years. I went back for my MBA. From a career perspective, everything checked out. I was doing fine, but secretly I was, accruing some debt from the city, and I couldn't confront my family about it. So ultimately my career caught up to this debt and I was able to pay it off. But simultaneously at that time, it was around 2021, 2022 when, FanDuel, DraftKings, and all that stuff came out on the phone. And when it first came out, it's not like, oh, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Like somebody just introduced me to it. I dabbled with it a little bit and I did some sports betting, but I started getting hooked a little bit onto the electronic casino side of things. And lo and behold, within a couple months, I was starting to, it was just so easy to deposit a lot of money, it's thousands of dollars, over the course of couple months. And so all this time I've, secretly carried this debt. I finally paid it off. And now here I am, gambling on these apps and starting to put myself in debt again. And, ultimately I kind of shut that down. I saw it happening. I was like, you know what? I can't beat the house. This is just, it's basically luck, whether even if you play, the best odds games, it's still, 52% to 48%, it's just, you're not going to win in the long run. And I was, I guess, fortunate enough to kind of have that foresight. So then I had the genius idea of like, hey, maybe I can get into, stock options. I do well in finance. I know enough about it. And this could be my ticket out. This could be my side hustle. So then I started dabbling in that stuff. But that's when the addictive mentality started to kind of siphon into this game because even though I could draw out my strategy, I can do everything that I needed to do. I had, wake up in the morning. This is, study my charts. The more, I thought the more work I put into these things, the positive outcome would have just been a reflection of hard work. So lo and behold, it's a game of psychology because you come in with these strategies and whatnot, and but you tell yourself, I'm only going to put, 5% of my bankroll at risk today, and if it goes against me, I'm going to shut it down. But as the day plays out, you start losing you lose that 5% that you say you're going to lose, and you still got 4 hours left in the day to trade. So now the demons start trickling in, and you're like, well, and you're in part of like these other chat rooms, and you're getting, FOMO as they call it, fear of missing out of the next best trade, and you could just see it's gambling, and I couldn't see that in the moment, right? It was just like I have the ticket out, I know I'm right, I know I'm just one trade away from just reversing everything, so now you start, putting more chips in, and that goes against you. And now your hold keeps doubling. And now you're kind of just emotionally sucked into it. You kind of go on this full tilt where, okay, now I got to do the easy trade. Now I got to leverage more money. Now I got to, um, risk it all basically because I can't believe I just lost all this money so quick. So you start the day, structured in what you think is going to be a very organized, strategic day. And then it just kind of flushes apart like crazy. So that's the similarities between, the stock market and gambling. And the only reason why I give you that background is because, I got really caught up in it, just to digress a minute. And I got caught up to the point where, you know, I started taking out personal loans. I started, maxing out credit cards. And, I was living this double life basically because I always was able to provide food for my family. There was never signs that, this was going on. I was hiding in my basement all day. I looked like I used to work from home, when I was doing, uh, I went from finance into commercial real estate and I would work from home and it would just, look to my wife that, I was just downstairs working. Meanwhile, I'm just looking at charts all day and everything like that, biting my fingernails. Again, it just had to wait to the first of the month when my income came in. I would just make sure all our food, everything was, paid for that month, and she wouldn't know anything. But meanwhile, like I said, I'm taking out these personal loans. I'm trying to right all my wrongs, overnight. And eventually, I tapped that out too. And the saddest part about all of this story is because I was in commercial real estate and self-employed, I had access to some trusted clients' funds. And I turned into like the person that I would never thought I'd been because the financial pressures of confronting what I had done, how I lost all this money as a financial advisor, looking myself in the mirror and saying, to come forth with my family and say, yeah, I totally lost everything in the stock market. I didn't have the courage to do that. So instead, what did I do? I started tapping into clients' funds and taking their money in these reserve accounts without their permission and just kept gambling on that. And now the stakes are even higher because now I'm not even placing the trade with any sort of strategy. If the strategy is going against me in 2 seconds, it's just extreme panic. The dollars, the further away it's going, the in the right direction that it's going, the more panic ensues. So now I'm losing their money, and now I got to dip more into their money to just keep trying to hit that one big win, right? Just to clear house. And this cycle lasted about when I started taking money about a year into the 2 year period, and it just all fell to shambles in that time. And sadly, I was good at hiding it. It didn't mean I wasn't crying behind the scenes and saying, "How can my life be like this?" I had a 3 year old at home at the time. My wife was pregnant with our second kid, and everything that I cherished. I had the most blessed life, the beautiful family, no childhood trauma, no reason for me to even get in this hole. And you know, this is what I succumbed to: these pressures, these financial pressures, and pride, self pride. That like I put myself into this. I'm gonna fix this, and I'm not gonna accept no for an answer because no meant everybody was gonna leave me. Like my life was over. Right? This is at least what we tell ourselves. So eventually the hole became so much that I just couldn't live, the man of principle deep down just couldn't live with himself anymore. And I was either gonna, run away from it all or quite frankly, think about committing suicide, which I just couldn't do in my heart. I betrayed all these people that I loved that, they deserve to hear the truth. So um, I came clean with everything in October of 2024. It was the most difficult day of my life, but at the same time, it was the most relieving day of my life because I've been living this double life for so long. And I knew it was going to come with possible legal ramifications. I knew it was probably going to come with my wife and kids leaving me. I knew it was probably going to come with my family disowning me. But I just had to start doing the right thing again. It was just I never wanted to be this monster. It was never who I grew up to be. It was never my moral compass. But this is what this addiction does. So lo and behold, tell the truth, and uh, absolutely dropped an atomic bomb on my family. And but they stayed by my side. Spare you guys a lot of the pain and suffering and the tears and all that for now. But it's been quite a journey, and I'm so grateful they stayed by my side. I did have to deal with the legal ramifications. I was spared by the courts and the federal government. I didn't go through a trial. I pleaded guilty. I spoke to the FBI. I went through all the phases, everything. And, nothing short of a miracle that, I didn't have to do time. I was planning on doing time. I was prepared to do time. I was planning to go spend time away from my kids, everything. And at the dying hour, I got relieved with 40 hours a week of community service for 3 years. So that's where I'm at today. I'm about a year in from that final court decision. So it's crazy how time flies, but um, yeah, it's just wild. I I'm definitely a bit of a unique case in terms of the magnitude that I've taken things, in terms of my age, in terms of my background, and but at the end of the day, which we'll get into, the more and more people that I meet in recovery, it's not the dollar amount, it's not the magnitude, it's not this or that, or what you bet on, what you scratch offs, horse betting, stock market, crypto. We all did the same thing to ourselves. We all went through the same devastation. We all devastated our families. We all, contemplated probably killing ourselves at some point. I mean, it's just a nasty disease that can just get anybody. So I know, with your help with this podcast, with mine on social media, we're just trying to reach out to people and let everybody, see the light, with our stories that everything's going to be okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
I know I was rambling a bit there, but that's my background.
No, dude, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. And thank you so much for everything you just shared there. I know it's not easy. It's what I love about this day and age, I guess, is like the amount of people like us that are willing to kind of just put it all out there and be open to help the next person out there and to continue to, help ourselves in our recovery. Um, Listening to your story, it's like we bet on completely different things, but so much of it is so similar. you know, the uh the question like on how we got to our addiction. It's crazy with the gambling. Like you were talking about how you could go into a casino, right? And you could place, a couple $100 and you could leave, or you could go on these betting apps and you were able to kind of see you were overdoing it and pull yourself back. But it was the stock options and the trading that got you. I have so many similar stories of being able to do scratch offs, and could win whatever amount and not even care, or lose $20 and I wouldn't care. Or I would go to a same thing, go to a casino and um have no effect. I could lose whatever, 20, $40 or whatever. Just the casinos didn't do it for me. Season long fantasy didn't do it for me, but what took me down was DraftKings and FanDuel with the daily fantasy sports, and just feeling so like isolated as to like how could someone be addicted to daily fantasy sports? Like it just seems so crazy because like with other drug addictions I've had and other people have had, it's like heroin addiction is heroin addiction. Everybody knows it is bad for you, but like the way DraftKings was promoted and advertised, it was almost just like this, which they're doing now. It's just this game of skill. It's fun. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's in the stock market. Everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing that, and we feel like we're the only ones. So that's why I feel like these stories are so important because you feel like you're the only one, and you can find so many different connections amongst different people, whether they're 18 just coming in after, a 6 month run, or there's someone who's 60 coming in for their 10th time at recovery. Um, and same thing, like you just all of a sudden it just gets out of hand, and you're doing things that you never thought you would do, and you're compromising yourself again and again, and you just keep taking one more step. You're hiding it from your loved ones, you're hiding it from your family. We're hating who we are. We're able to somewhat function, because gambling is it's the hidden addiction. It's much easier to hide than alcohol or anything else. And I can't tell you the amount of times I'd go through my day and have a smile on my face and come in and act like or present as the happy, loving father, and then go into the bathroom and go take a shower and look in the mirror and break down crying because I hated who I was looking at in the mirror for 1,000
Hmm.
reasons.
Yeah, no, it really is. It can't be emphasized enough how sneaky this addiction is. I've been fortunate enough where, I haven't been involved in other addictions. Doesn't mean I haven't dabbled in other things, but what I've heard from people in multiple programs, just, not in every case, but they often say this is the hardest one to shake because addiction usually comes to an end when you have some sort of intervention, right? And unless it's very hard to have that intervention with yourself. So, drugs and alcohol, people see you stumbling, they can smell it on your breath. Maybe, you're losing weight, you're slurring your words. Your family kind of interjects, like, hey, enough's enough. Like, what's going on here? They give you an ultimatum, and you kind of got to slap yourself saying, like, what do I really want out of my life? Here, they don't know that's going on. You're not stumbling around, like you said, you're smiling around them,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, with drugs and alcohol and stuff, like, when you get in the crux of your addiction, you're not you know that one more hit or that one more drink is not going to give you that high that you're looking for. You're really doing it to basically survive and move on with your day. When you're chasing that high in gambling, it's because something beneficial can come out of it, right? Like you can hit that one big win. So all your problems will get solved if you take one more hit. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, it obviously doesn't work out that way. And that's what's just so devastating and sneaky about this addiction, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then the amount of people I've talked to who have either hit the number that they set out to hit or won enough, to pay off everything, and it just restarts that wheel. See, I knew I could do it. Now
Mm.
I can instead of paying it off now, you're going to keep going. The amount of times, I would win and then it would just reignite, the wheel and I would start betting more. Um,
Yeah, guilty.
yeah.
That's for
Yeah.
sure. It wasn't all losses, you
Yeah.
know.
A couple of other things before we start with the recovery questions, that really stuck out to me was, you knew that no matter what happened, you needed to change. You were ready to change. You were done. You couldn't compromise yourself anymore. And, you were able to, come out there and put it out without having to be caught. I had to be caught. But one way or another, whether you're caught or whether you come out with it, um, I really feel like the biggest thing in recovery is just being ready to change no matter what it is. I had the same feeling too. I felt like my whole family was going to disown me. I was convinced my wife and kids were going to be out of my life. And I told myself I deserved it. I just remember when, my wife had called me and said, what is, DraftKings? Um, or why you're getting emails from DraftKings or whatever. And I just knew the jig was up. And after we hung up, um, and I initially tried to, find another lie to get out of it. And she's like, "When you're ready to tell me the truth, you can call me back." And then I went the whole day. We didn't talk till that evening, but I remember just thinking like, this day was going to come, and you deserve this, and your family's gone. But I remember thinking that no matter what happens, I can't live this way anymore. I can't
Hmm.
live like this anymore. So I was fully convinced that my life was over too. And here I am over 5 years later and having the best year of my life. My relationship with my wife is better than it's ever been in all our years together and our 16 years together. Um, I have great kids. I love both my kids. I'm doing well with work. I just hobbies, activities, everything. Life couldn't be better. And what I was seeking from this money and gambling I have now. And it's got nothing to do with money. It's got to do with the happiness and the things that you cherish in your life and the people you have around you. Um,
Yeah, and that's that's the crazy part, right? Because there were plenty of times where I knew it was getting out of hand. I mean, I had so many opportunities to tell my family prior to the magnitude that it got to, and I was so afraid at that time that, they're going to leave me. They're going to leave, I'd have one more chance at correcting this by putting more money in the
yeah,
account and trying to correct it. And not kind of blinded. I was so convinced that I was going to get it right because I had won before, like you said, I'd won big before. And I don't want to say due, but it was just a matter if I could just buy enough time to get my trades right, but the bigger the hole it was getting, the more irrational trades I was making.
yeah,
And but the point is that like we waited so long to either get caught or tell them in the fear that they're already gonna leave us.
yeah,
But if they stuck by our side through this devastation, you're kicking yourself for not telling them earlier.
yeah,
But
yeah,
so all the people that are struggling out there that are on the fence about whether to tell people because they just know they're just so convinced that their family's going to disown them.
yeah,
Like we all have that thought process. And nine times, listen, some family, everybody's different. I can't speak for everybody, but I've helped a lot of people in recovery. I shared a lot of stories of people in recovery, and eight, nine times out of ten, when you're really vulnerable like that to your family members, and you prove to them that like you really want to change, more often than not. Listen, I'm not going to say you're not going to get, a slap on the wrist to put it lightly. There's going to be changes, but they're going to stay by your side. So if you can do that sooner than later, that's a huge, huge step in recovery.
absolutely. Yeah. And no matter what, I feel like no matter what you have to deal with, it's or learn to just the different things you have to readjust your life to when you come out or you're caught in addiction and you really dedicate your life to recovery. Those things are worth it to me. Like to this day, it's been over 5 years, and I still don't have the password or account to our checking account, but that's okay. I don't need it. I have a credit card, and we go over our finances together, and we make every single financial decision together. But I still don't have access to my our shared checking account, and that's okay. But when we first started, I was basically being given like $25 a week in like essentially like an allowance, essentially because, I couldn't be trusted with money, which is completely understandable. So it just took
Right,
time to eventually build up to, different levels of trust. And that's all on us to prove over time with our own actions. Um,
right. And if that's difficult for you, then you're not being honest with yourself. You're not ready to fully submit because it doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you, less of a person because like do whatever it takes. Like I fully surrender. I am so done with gambling and whatever I have to do to prove it, take all the money. I don't like, this, it's not like I'm not going to eat. It's not like I'm not going to get, that shirt that I need on that day. It's just,
Yeah,
I don't care. There's nothing to hide. The reason why we didn't do it before is because there was so much to hide,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So if you're struggling with that, it's typically because you're something in you, like you're
Yeah,
not fully ready to let go.
yeah, yeah. Yep. And that's a good way of being self-reflective, which is a great thing I've gained from recovery is being very self-reflective. And then one other quick thing, which really I think is an important topic, is you know, like you said, this all was a span of like 2 years. Like your addiction came to pass in your life in basically a 2 year period. You were not an addicted gambler, and then it just burned through your life, and you had the major consequences of addiction and everything that led along with it. It wasn't like a slow buildup, like someone, like so many stories you hear where, like I started gambling at 10, or, my father let this. It's just with the way gambling is right now, I feel like we're going to start seeing more and more of this, whether it is with stock options or sports betting or poly markets or any of this stuff, where you don't necessarily have to be a person who grew up in trauma or had all these horrible things happen to you and you're running away, and instead of alcohol, you're using this or that. It's very easy to just, you know, fall victim to an ad and just say, "Oh, hey, let me give a try it," stock trading, Robinhood and all these other apps are out there, and the DraftKings and the FanDuels and the Harris Casino. Well, all these different things are out there, and there's so many ways to get caught in the poly markets and Kalshi. It's really scary. So I think your story is a very important one to put out there, because it's unique now, but I don't think it's going to be so unique going forward. There's going to be a lot of um, young men and women that just get caught up, and it happens really quick. And it's not
Hmm.
like other drug addictions where you can kind of see when you cross that line. It's a really blurry line where it just feels like you're having fun and just placing some sports bets, or maybe you're doing a little bit here and there on stock, trading. And then before you know it, you're in over your head, and you have this big boulder on your back that you just can't get rid of. And now you're like you said, we're stuck. We feel like we got to figure this out on our own, so that we don't have to lay the shame on someone else that we are feeling, or feeling scared that the people in our life are going to disown us or leave us and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and I mean it's sick with Kashi and the Polymar. I mean you could bet on if it's going to rain or snow tomorrow. I mean
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy that they glamorize it. I mean I social media. I mean they're just like they're trying to hit the trends and hit a nerve with younger generations. And the sad part is it can consume you right in the same room, with other people. If you're doing drugs in the corner of the room, everybody's going to kind of see you're
yeah,
doing it. If you just lost 10 grand on the corner of the couch, nobody even knows.
yeah,
And that's the scary part. And I can't emphasize enough that, it could be a slow progression, but at some point, no matter what level of your addiction, it's such a high rate of change at a certain point because once you go on that full tilt, let's be honest, right? Uh, Not everybody's greedy. Not everybody likes to make life about money, but there's obviously more money, more problems, sure, but there's a spectrum, right? People need to work to live, to have financial freedom and strive for that. If somebody's working 10-hour shifts and making, 2 grand, a month, at putting all their blood, sweat, and tears into something, and then they just lost that 2 grand in 10 minutes. I mean,
yeah,
psychologically, that messes you up. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It leads
That's
to
right.
one bad decision over another. Next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm calculating in my head, or they blow through their life savings in a month. Like I worked 10 years to build that. The
Yeah,
only possible way I can make that money back, I can't fathom working all those hours again to make that back. The only possible way I can make that all back is by spinning the wheel or the
yeah,
same way I lost it, right? And you kind of convince yourself that might be worth it because I can't put another 10 years on my retirement now because, but that's the blinders that we put on in the moment. And
yeah.
rest assured, that's not logical thinking because the money comes back faster than, we think in the moment.
Oh, absolutely. Where I was just over 5 years ago, and to where I am now, it's like everything that I wanted out of that. I have. I mean, yeah, my house isn't paid off, and would I like to redo my kitchen a little earlier than than I'm probably going to? Sure, but you know what? It's a process just like recovery. It's just you save up money, you do things, it's like it doesn't have to be now. Delayed gratification is okay. Um, but yeah, it's scary how quick you can lose that money and how long it takes to save it back up. But I look at the lost money as just like a price of admission to a much better life. So as much as, it sucks to have lost as much as I did, I would not trade it back for the life and the mindset that I have right now. And
Exactly. Exactly.
but
And
it's sorry, guy.
no, not to go off on a tangent, this journey has taken me from earning an MBA, earning a high level career, multiple six-figure salary, to losing it all, filing for bankruptcy, having a felony to my name, cannot get back into the industry I was working,
Yeah,
So the week after I told my family, like, you know, I I had to prove myself right away. I knew that's what I wanted. I was like, oh my God, they're really giving me a second chance. I was expecting to like crawl out of a gutter.
yeah,
So, I put my pride aside and I applied for Amazon. I was an Amazon delivery driver, and then I was a mason, So you're talking about entry level, minimum wage paying jobs, and there's a beauty in all that at the same time. It's like I wasn't born with a golden spoon in my mouth, but we didn't miss a meal. You know what I mean? Growing up, it was middle class, lower middle class family, and to see people that aren't as fortunate, whether they're from other countries or other demographics, or they're working to survive. I mean, vacation to these like they don't go on vacation. They work 7 days a week. You know what I mean? And I was fortunate enough to go on vacation, once a year growing up. You know what I mean? So it's like all of a sudden paying off the house isn't like you don't care. You know what I mean? It's like fast
yeah,
forwarding to pay off the house or getting these things. I mean, listen, I was never one for, the Audis and the Mercedes and all that, but the point is it really keeps things in perspective that like I have two beautiful boys. I have a beautiful, loving wife. I have a beautiful family. And obviously, it hurts more that I've hurt these people, in that regard. But aside from that, what you really have in front of you is, you know, it, if your only issue is financial, like honestly, I'm happy with that because I put myself through so many levels of stress that were so far beyond financial. I'm so
yeah,
glad I never have to deal with that stuff again.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like you just took the words out of my mouth. I mean, it's just that's how exactly how I feel. The
Hmm.
finances will come, but having the life that we have now, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You can offer me $1 million right now, I wouldn't take it. I would not change my life. Wouldn't change my life. I love
Exactly.
where I'm at. Um, so we'll jump into the questions that I'm asking everybody. So first thing, just quick, you've been in sustained recovery now for what, just under 2 years, or is it 2 years now?
October
October.
October 10th would be 2 years. I
Nice.
guess
That's
beginning of October 3rd, October. I go to GA, Gamblers
yeah,
Anonymous, which give us a defined date. Technically, I stopped a little bit before that, but let's call it 10/10/24.
that's awesome. That's not easy to do coming up on 2 years, so that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, I think the statistics are 5 or 10% maybe make it past 1 year. Um, so it's a big
Thank you.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
Um, what have been the tools you have used in recovery to maintain it successfully, and what have you found that works best for you and why?
Sure. So, like as I mentioned, I go to Gamblers Anonymous. I think, because it was such significant time in my life. I think October 3rd, I told my family, and immediately, found a meeting. Um, I also explored, psychotherapy, for addiction. Um, and I think GA for me was really a positive experience. Um, I don't think it's the holy grail of recovery. There's different stigmas behind it, and it can get, a cultish vibe to it. I'd like to dismiss those in a sense, but I haven't been to every room around the country, so I know some people have difficult experiences and some people have really good experiences. I'm happy to say the two rooms I've been to have been definitely life-changing for me, especially in the moment, like in those first couple months of recovery, the first 6 to 8 months of recovery, where, you know, I I didn't know what I had legal issues going on. I had family, that was I just mentally I was just a wreck. It didn't mean I wasn't waking up in the morning and pressing on, but like to be able to talk to people, like I just said with you earlier, that went through this. Again, didn't matter what they bet on. They went through these struggles, they went to rock bottom. People foreclosing on their homes, people losing their families, families actually walking out on them, divorces, losing their kids. I mean, it's not the dollar amount. There's different blessings in their lives that have all gotten ripped away from people, and they've all are coming out on the other side of these things. So to be able to talk to those people in person was very powerful for me. Fast forward to today, um, you know, I still go to 2 meetings a week. Um, but if I feel like I can't make it to a meeting or something, like I'm not like in shambles, you know what I mean? And if I need to take a couple weeks off, like that's fine because your recovery is like your recovery. It's your journey, right? And I think that's one thing that you have to be careful on in your recovery journey because people can be very pressing, right? People can be like, you got to do it this way, or you're gonna end up in jail, or you're gonna do this, you're gonna, this worked for me. It's like it's not that that's not good advice. It's like, but you have to go at your pace. But at the same time, you have to be very honest with yourself. If you're not going to meetings or you're not going to therapy because you know, you're stubborn and somebody told you like, oh, you should be doing this, like maybe that's not being honest with yourself. If you're not going to them because you didn't see they were beneficial to you, okay, that's fine, don't go, but start exploring some other reasons, other tools. So, for me, it was going to GA and it was not just going to the meetings, it was establishing connections with the community, and as I am further in my recovery, I'm seeing there's more avenues, right? Social media, um, online meetings, therapy groups, Reddit forums, all this stuff I didn't know existed. And quite frankly, my personality, like I would have been too embarrassed to reach out at that time. Like I'm not going to go reach out to somebody on social media about my problems. I had to go in person to somebody, you know. And now I'm like I said, I run a social media campaign, so I'm like, you learn a lot about yourself, in recovery. But for me, the best tool was going to see somebody in person, and that was GA, which I still go to today. Staying connected with people like you, meeting people, fellow peers, uh, all different age groups, and again, I did go to psychotherapy. I just I did it for what the time period I needed it for, about 4 months, and then I just found there was nothing less to talk about. Some people go to one, every week for the rest of their lives. That's you, that's you. For me, I got what I needed out of it. So I can't emphasize enough, like what works for me, that's what works for me, but whatever works for everybody, like it's your journey, but you have to be honest with yourself. Are you not exploring these things because, you're uncomfortable, or you not exploring these things because you're just being stubborn about certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pretty much answered the next question before even asking. I mean, the next question would be, what recovery methods have you tried that didn't work well for you and why? But I pretty much asked that question to people because I like to lead it into what you were just talking about, where it's like there are multiple different pathways to recovery, and if something doesn't work for you, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're going to fail at recovery. It doesn't mean that you're a failure and you're going to go and relapse. It just means that this one thing maybe didn't work for you. If therapy didn't work for you, that's all right. Maybe try another therapist, and if they didn't work, maybe just go for peer counseling, one-on-one. There's
Hmm.
a lot you can find peer-to-peer services in a lot of different um, places like the New York Council on Problem Gambling has peer services. I'm not sure you guys do as well in Connecticut, right?
Yep, the Better Choice program in Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I completely agree. It's again, it's just about being honest with yourself. There's people in Gamblers Anonymous that go to 5 meetings a week and they've been in the program forever. And that's
Yeah.
just what works for them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I don't want to say they make it their life, but that's what works for them. The guidelines, they were in such a bad spot at their time that these guidelines were it's like they just spoke to them, and it corrected them. And they have like the type of person they are, whether they're type A, type B, everybody's different. So like they need that rigid discipline. Somebody, go to a meeting every day. Like that's just, if that's what works, that's what works. Go to a meeting once a month works. Um, I will say, just um, don't get deterred from like you said, if you have a bad therapist or you have a bad GA experience or you have a bad, don't be like, see, that's it. Like I knew this wouldn't work. It's hopeless. That's
Yeah.
It's not the truth. Just go experience other rooms. And when in doubt, just reach out to people online or listen to podcasts or reach out to people on social media because um, you know, I find that GA in particular is can see we're also coming to this new type of gambler now, right? There's younger people, yes, but there's also people that haven't quite hit rock bottom, and are looking for answers. They're more proactive. They're like, I wasn't a gambler, I just lost 10 grand, I don't ever want to do that again. I didn't lose my life savings. I didn't jet, I lost way too much money way too fast and I'm flustered. But like maybe you're not an addict, but you will be an addict if you don't listen to the signs, you know what I mean? And you hadn't hit rock bottom. And a lot of people that are coming into GA or certain programs have hit rock bottom. And these programs are to get you out of that rock bottom. So if you are one of those people that haven't necessarily hit rock bottom, but you got caught up in this thing for 2 months and you lost a lot of money and you're looking for answers, you know, the that that's why like you have to go in open minded, and listen to what GA's saying or listen to what these podcasts are saying or listen to what there's online Zoom meetings that are only 30 minutes long and things like that just to start educating yourself about this. And I have to say this now, just, there is a thing called self-exclusion, which a lot of people don't seem to know about. So everybody should do it, basically, if you have a gambling problem, no matter what depth of gambling you're in. But if you're just flirting with addiction, just ban yourself. If you just lost 10 grand in a month and you're not even sure why, just ban yourself. Who cares? You could do
Yeah.
anything you want in life. You just can't gamble. Like it's not the end of the world, you
Yeah.
know? So self-exclusion, I think, is a big tool.
Oh, for sure. In New York here, you're able to call the New York Council on Problem Gambling, a place that my wife works for, and you can request to have yourself excluded in New York State, and they'll exclude you from all casinos, all betting apps that are legal in New York. The only thing that they can't exclude you from is like scratch tickets, essentially. So
Hmm.
self-exclusion is great. It's a great tool. Just like Gamban, anything that can get you past those urges that may hit you at, 10 o'clock at night on a Friday when you're bored and you don't have someone to talk to, and that may have been, or a trigger may happen of yours. It's good to just have the roadblocks there. So self-exclusion, Gamban, the more tools you have to get past those urges, the better. Because typically, an urge lasts anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes. And you can get through that, you can make it through another day. And that's a very important thing early on in recovery.
Right. And that's exactly what it is, right? Because if you have that roadblock, listen, if you want to find a way to gamble, you're going to find a way to gamble. But
Yeah.
like if you're really trying to stop and you have this urge, but you have this roadblock and it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to call this company, get unbanned, submit a form, do this, wait 2 days. Like, that's the purpose of the roadblock. It's like it's in place. You have the urge. You can't really do anything to feed that urge in the moment. You go to sleep, and next thing you know, you're like, what the hell was I thinking? I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, shit. I mean, that's a much lesser example, but the amount of times where, I want to get some damn ice cream or I want to eat a fucking brownie sundae and I just walk away for 5 minutes and I'm able to get to bed without doing it. The next day, I'm very happy I didn't do it because as much as I would have
Exactly.
enjoyed it in that moment, I'm like, great. That's one day more where I didn't eat this shit. Now I'm one day closer to my goal. So it's just a lot of times it's just, yeah, we can get around anything. If you're hell bent on gambling, you're going to gamble, even if you're self-excluded from casinos. I mean, the amount of people that I've met over these last 5 years that had self-excluded from casinos, but still had gone in and gambled and won, but just couldn't get the money. I mean, if you want to do it,
Right,
you're going to do it. But it's just,
right.
they're great tools to have in your toolbox, just like going to meetings, just like, building a community and rebuilding your life in different ways. Whether that's through fitness or music or whatever your thing is, so actually that leads us right into the next question. So aside from your recovery tools, what have you done to rebuild your life and restore purpose and meaning?
Yeah, I mean, every day I'm rebuilding, right? I mean, like I said, I lost everything in terms of, the career that my resume, everything, I'm starting from scratch. And it's been a very fulfilling journey. I mean, fitness is a huge part of it. Listen, I'm not like, I'm fit, but I'm not extremely obsessed about it. But the important thing is I'm going to the gym, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'm eating relatively healthy. Do I have ice cream, now and then? Yeah, of course. But like, I'm not dwelling in, I'm not creating a downward spiral. Like, my life is miserable. Might as well eat. Look at me now. Like, I'm overweight. I'm ugly. I'm this. I'm that. Might as well drink. You know what I mean? It's like one bad decision leads to another. One good decision leads to another good decision. So, staying active is a huge thing. I mean, even if like, you don't go to the gym. I mean, whether it's picking up a new hobby, getting back into a sport that you loved, or reading, or playing chess, or going for hikes. Boredom it feasts on addiction, right? So like, especially gambling, when it's at the click of your butt, click of your phone. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to, call your drug dealer or anything like that. If it's like, if you find yourself bored, like, the demons start crawling in. So you got to find a way to fill that time. And for me, fitness is a big part of it. I enjoy video games, being more present with my family. I mean, I had ridded them for years. It's just on my phone all the time. I'd be placing a trade on my computer. I go upstairs, it just on my phone, like checking trades, checking P&L. My kid's making his first steps, making his first words, and I was there, but I wasn't there, and how many times did I subconsciously, stop from expanding with playing with my kids, instead I'm worried about the next trade. Instead, like, if I'm staring at him in the backyard, like, maybe I'm going to teach him how to throw a ball today. It's like those thoughts didn't cross my mind because I'm so fixated on gambling. It's not like I was a bad father in that way. It's not like I just left the house and didn't come back till 4 a.m. I was present enough to be there, but I wasn't thinking about the next best thing for my kid. You know what I mean? And living in the present. So happy to be able to do that now. And honestly, like, that's a big thing too. Call that a hobby, if you want. But it's just living in the present is so gratifying. And once you experience both sides of it, you quickly like, I don't want to go back to that other way where your head's up, you know what, So um, staying active in the job search. Right now I'm doing 40 hours a week community service. I got to try and provide for my family. So I'm also working 20, 25 hours a week. It's my days are full and it's for the better, and with that becomes, more opportunity. The more good things you do, it's just funny the way the universe works, whether people are, spiritual, religious, nothing. You can't, time and time again, you hear in recovery, it's just calm consequences. I have a higher power, so I don't just chalk it up to complete coincidences. But um, again, time and time again, you just hear how when people get back on their feet, they start doing the right thing, they start getting out of their comfort zone, they do X, Y, Z, they have this conversation with this person they never would have done, or, it's just the universe just starts rolling out the red carpet. This random job opportunity comes, or like, some newfound money comes or something. It's just such a better way of life. It really is.
Oh yeah, for sure. I I can think back to 100 different examples of being around my family and not being present and not being there. And that's definitely one of the bigger regrets is, not so much the money, but just the time I lost with my family. I sometimes my wife even brings up, like she'll talk about, oh, do you remember when Luke did this, or do you remember when, Shane did that? It's just like, and if it was back in those times, sometimes I have a hard time remembering because either even if I was there, I was thinking about how much I lost the night before, or how could I do this to these wonderful kids and my beautiful wife? It's like how can I do this and just not being present and the amount of time I lost and just like you, it wasn't like a super long period. It was like over a, 4-year period with some breaks in between here and there, but it just had a real devastating effect. Um, and I remember the amount of times, my kids were little. But when the last year when I finally stopped, I mean, they were 7 and 4, and I remember being down. I mean, I vividly remember being down in the basement playing with them, and I just kept picking up my phone to look at how the games were going, to see what my fantasy points were, to see what places that all my lineups were in. And, my son was 7 at the time, and he's like, Dad, put the phone down. No phones. We're
The
playing.
worst.
And it's just, it just makes me sad that that was, who I was back then. But it's not who we are today. We can be present, we can be great fathers, and we can learn from those things. And it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
we were bad fathers. It just means we were just caught up in an addiction and we were making some bad decisions, but we decided that no matter what, we're going to do the right thing and we're going to rebuild our lives for ourselves, which then in turn makes us better fathers and better husbands for our family. And then everybody's life is better.
Exactly. And there's the fun thing with GA, sometimes you hear all these sayings and they just help sometimes. And you know, sometimes you'd be like, I didn't choose to have an addictive personality. Obviously I didn't want this. You know what I mean? Like, why me, God? You know what I mean? Like, why am I,
Yeah.
being made an example of? And, uh, you know, you, in a sense, you aren't responsible for succumbing to this addiction, but you are responsible, 100% responsible for your recovery. I mean, if you recognize you have a problem and you're not doing anything about it, it's on you. You know what I mean? So it's you need to make the changes because you might not be responsible for how you got here, and being, because it's not just a willpower thing. It's been proven time and time again.
Yeah.
But again, if you recognize you have a problem and you're still refusing to get help, or you're still refusing to come clean to your family, or make yourself better, and listen, I know it's not easy. You can recognize that, and 3 months can still pass by. But if you're stubbornly just saying this is just who I'm destined to be, my life's garbage, this and that, like, then that's not acceptable, and that's on you.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, Tim, what has worked for you to sustain your long-term recovery?
The Again, it's just you start to realize like this is just the way life's supposed to be lived, it's just the self-reflection and addressing character defects that not necessarily led to the gambling. Some of them for sure. Like I was definitely just way super for prideful, and some defects are sometimes a good thing. My pride has got me into a lot of successful situations, but over pride, too much of anything is no good, right? My pride has also led me to me trying to figure out my problems by myself, and what I thought was always a good thing, and I'm gonna figure this out, led me into the biggest hole in my life. So, you know, that's just one thing, but I have a laundry list of character defects and just the mission for growth. It's just like I can get very frustrated. I'm not like explosive, angry person that's just going to lose their head, but like I'll get angry, and I don't like getting angry, and just having that self-reflection that I don't want to do this and I want to change, and knowing that like I did this in recovery, I know I can change if I put the work towards it. You know, you could start addressing all these other issues that you have in your life, big or small. You know, I'm not saying
Yeah.
like, I'm a normal guy, but everybody has issues, and so that journey for growth and just proof that I've done this, with my recovery. It's like I don't want to take a step back in that. You know what I mean? And obviously, there's layers to it, like the fact that my family has given me a second chance with everything, and I never wanted to be in this situation to begin with, and everybody's sticking by my side. I mean, if I go out and gamble again, like I ain't getting a third chance. You know what I mean? Like it's just no
Yeah.
way. I'm putting in a lot more than just money at that time. I'm putting in everything. So, you know, again, just being honest with yourself and what do you really want in your life, and if you already have it, like what is gambling going to do to give you more than what you have? And um, again, obviously still staying connected to people. There are people out there that I've seen abstain for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, gone back out there and end back up in GA. And it's pretty sad because they end up, uh, I hate that they have to be, the the example that we need to learn from because they're humans and it's real things. But, they say gambling's, the addiction's progressive even in recovery. So, and I've seen it firsthand with peers in the industry. So somebody goes abstains for 10 years and they go back in it ramps up right where you left off. Those juices start flowing and it's just like you go from $2 bets straight back up to the $100,000 bets right away. You know what I mean? So it's like I've already come to terms that I'm powerless over this, and again, it's okay. I think it's one of the harder addictions to overcome, but I'm also grateful that like socially it doesn't impact my life, If I was an alcoholic and then all of a sudden I had difficulty like meeting up with friends for a drink or bar, at my age, like I could see how that's tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially somebody in their 20s or something. It's like I have to revamp my whole social life, to fight this addiction. With gambling, I mean, unless all your friends just go to the casino and that's what your friend group is based off of, like
Yeah.
your life's not over. You know what I mean? Like I could still go out and have a beer with my friends and enjoy life and all the finer things in life. I just can't gamble. Like I'm at peace with that, So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and if there is something where like, with myself with sports, I had to take a complete step back because mo my gambling was all based on sports. So I was someone who really enjoyed watching the Knicks and the Mets and the Jets and stuff like that, and sports was a decent part of my life back then. And it was a topic of conversation with friends and with coworkers and whatnot. But I had to really take a step back from that. And, I was very open about my recovery pretty quickly. So, I had to let the people in my life know it's like, I, uh, I'm on this journey right now, and I can't really talk sports with you, and
hmm
I can't watch games or I can't do any of this stuff. And it was a little bit difficult at first, but again, it was just one of those things where it's worth the price of admission, just like giving up access to a bank account or having to have your phone monitored or whatever the thing is. It's just like whatever that thing is, it is all of it is worth the outcome of recovery in general and the life that you're beginning to build and continue to build in recovery. Um,
Yeah, and I think, just to touch base on that, that now that you're making me think a little more. Yeah, I mean, obviously I deleted all my trading apps, everything. Again, the magnitude that I took things, it was just like I'm so done with I almost never had like thank God I've never had nerve, I couldn't wait. I was putting myself in so much distraught that I just couldn't wait for this torment to be over, But I know there's people out there that are trying to be proactive about stopping. So they're going to still fight those urges. But like between self-exclusion and telling people, I can't emphasize that enough about telling a loved one, someone you really trust, tell your whole family, whatever. I know it's scary, but like then you're not isolated, right? Because if you don't tell anybody, and even if you find the willpower to stop for a few months, at some point you're just like, there's nothing stopping you from, that little whisper in your ear saying, let me just try again, because nobody knows. Nobody knows. So telling people help, and then yes, forfeiting control of your money doesn't have to be forever, guys. It could be 2 months, 10 months, forever, whatever. But like that's the ultimate roadblock too. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, if they're going to have eyes on my money all the time, then, how am I going to get away with this? I mean, again, are you going to go open up a side account and start cashing your direct deposit into
Yeah.
a like, it starts getting crazy. And then you're just like, all right, like clearly I'm not taking enough steps to take my recovery serious at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Yeah, it's just again being self-reflective. It's like it's just none of these things are perfect. None of these things work 100% of the time, but these are all great roadblocks to set up to help you set yourself up for a successful recovery. That was a lot of S's, and I'm surprised I didn't have to stumble on any of that because I normally stumble on that. I can never
Well done.
say successful. There we go. Thank you. Um, no, you've given a lot of great advice, a lot of great encouragement, but I'll just ask this last question I got for you anyway, because I'd love to hear what you got. What words of encouragement or suggestions do you have for someone just entering recovery or maybe currently struggling?
I mean, it's the pinnacle of GA programs or any anonymous programs. I mean, it's just one day at a time. And I know it sounds super cliche, but we've all been there at that rock bottom, and everything, especially in gambling, is so overwhelming. You've lost all this money. A lot of times you might have like creditors call on you, credit cards call on you, families disgusted with you, you're disgusted with yourself. I mean, if you look more out than one day, sometimes even 1 hour or 1 second at a time, it just seems so overbearing. You know what I mean? And you just like, there's no hope. You're just like, how, like, you're getting bombarded from every angle. You got to just breathe. You got to just take it one day at a time. And listen, I wasn't ever one to count my sobriety abstaining days, but I understand why people do it, because every day is one step in the right direction. And all you got to tell yourself, I just don't gamble today. Like, not worried about tomorrow, not worried about what happened yesterday, just today. Just focus on today, because things just start to fall into place. I mean, there's just countless testimonies of people that have just overcome this, and you got to believe it. Everybody likes to think that their situation's unique, for one reason or another, but we've heard it all, over the years. And even if your situation's slightly unique, the fundamentals, it's all the same. You know what I mean? You can overcome this. I mean, unless you have a gun to your head that says, bet, you're
Yeah.
you're 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 gonna find a way. And I know it's extremely difficult. Just seek help, reach out to people, breathe, take it one day at a time, because it is a lot. It is a lot in the moment. Uh, Again, I mean, I was down seven figures. All right. I know we don't talk money, but like it's worth sharing because I get it. You know what I mean? That the financial burdens are crazy. The life savings, the personal loans, the 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 felonies, the bankruptcy, it's a lot. At one point you kind of just got to laugh at it. It's just like monopoly money at this point. You know what I mean? And if you don't just breathe and realize, because fast forward, you tell myself that on day one, you're like, there's no way I'm getting over this. And now, fast forward today, and I have still a lot of money to pay back, no doubt about it. But like, I'm, there's more than a light at the end of the tunnel. Like you said, like one of the happiest I've ever been. You know what I mean? Because all the other stuff is flushed out, all that torment is flushed out, and like, my only problem is financial right now. Like, I'm gonna figure that out. Fortunately, I have, I'm 34. And, I feel bad for people that are, in their 70s and lost everything. That's a bit of a different story, but I can rebuild my whole career, even if it's a whole different, uh, industry or sector or whatever. And like, I'm not gonna accept no for an answer. I have kids, I have people to make proud, including myself. So, just breathe, take it one day at a time. If you can do it, if I can do it, if countless others have done it, like, Trust me. Everybody, like, I know what those people are feeling at their rock bottom, but they're gonna get through it.
I couldn't say it any better. I mean, no matter how daunting it may seem, or the amount of money that's owed, or the shame, it's all the work that's we put in, all the pain we have to overcome, all the work we have to put in to even begin this recovery journey. It is worth it because I mean, you could just hear it, like whether you go to a meeting or listen to a podcast or go on TikTok and listen to your, what you got up there. It's you can hear people who've been at the depths of addiction, who've lost so much and have, hated themselves or tried to commit suicide. Many people have gone that route, and to see the lives that they've rebuilt, where you're at almost 2 years later, where I'm at over 5 years later, it's like if you look back at day one, if we look back at our day one, we'd never expect to have the life that we have currently. Um, and that's why, like, you and I are both into fitness. I always compare recovery and fitness, because it just makes sense. Like the first day you start working out, for me, I was 230 some odd pounds. Had no muscle tone. I felt weak. I couldn't even do 10 push-ups without falling down, but I kept at it 3 times a week. I'd start doing my push-ups and I would do 10 and then I do 15 the next time. And it just slowly kept going. And just over time, I ended up losing weight and building muscle. And I look at myself now and I look at pictures, from 5 years ago, and I'm like, that does not look like the same person. That is not the same me anymore. But you don't see it day by day. You don't see the change day by day. So, like you said, sometimes it's just looking at it one day at a time or 1 hour at a time and just getting through that day and knowing that making the right decision today will lead me to a better tomorrow.
Yeah. And, you got to be honest. It's not linear. Recovery is not linear. Okay. A lot of times you tell the truth, you come forth with everything. There's tears, there's this weight lifted off, and then you go to GA and there's hope. You see hope, there's like all these people do it. I feel good. I got pep in my step, and then all of a sudden, 3 months pass by and things just get a little, you're in this lull, the honeymoon phase is over because the credit card guys haven't gone away. Your wife is still upset, or something starts popping its head out. Your friends are planning this boys trip or something that you can't go on, and you're
Yeah.
like, it's easy to just be like, ah, man, my life kind of sucks. It's like, but now you have all these outlets that you can talk to, and if you got through the worst of the worst 3 months ago, everything else is you're gonna get through it. So it's like it's good, and then it's bad, and then it's good again, and but
Yeah.
the lows are never going to be as low as they were, and it's like a staircase in that sense.
Yeah, which is why it's super important to build a good foundation in recovery where you have a good list of people you can call or talk to, and whether that's an online group or whether it's an in-person GA group, it's just finding a like-minded group of people that you can call in those times because it can be difficult. It's especially early in recovery, you could have a good couple of days or a good couple of weeks, and then sometimes your partner might get triggered by something, and then it could be a really rough day, and that's hard
Hmm.
to handle, as for both people, whether it's the affected other, your wife or your husband, whoever you affected, or your partner, whatever. Um, and I remember those days, and it's important to have a good support system. Again, not doing it alone. You can't do this alone.
Exactly. And there's no reason to. You don't get extra brownie points. You don't get a medal. It's like there's some people like to take that approach, and I don't know, maybe 2% succeed at it, but they don't get anything more beneficial than the ones that, weren't afraid to ask for help. So couldn't suggest that enough. And um I was gonna say one other thing, but I'm drawing a blank now. So
It's all good. All good. We'll do this again in the future.
yeah, this was great, man.
So thank you very much for coming on and doing this. Couldn't thank you more for everything you shared. A lot of great insights, and I really think your story will help a lot of people out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for all you do, man. This is great. Can't wait to keep hearing the podcast and watch it grow and, staying friends. I'm so glad we connected through all this.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. And anybody who's listening, please go check out Tim's social media platform on TikTok. It's called Betting on Recovery. Sorry, I'm 42. If I said that wrong, I apologize. But go to TikTok, look for Betting on Recovery. Please subscribe to his channel over there.
Yeah, and I haven't posted as frequently, but doesn't mean I'm not monitoring it. I get DMs all the time, and that's why I stay active on it. So please, if you have any questions, just reach out, and we'll keep the conversation going because we've all been there and we're here to help.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Tim. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, be good to yourselves and each other. Bye.